Michael didn't hesitate when he walked out that door. "I deserve to be happy, Anna," he said, stuffing his suitcase with the same hands that once held our children. "I can't waste my life in a dead marriage." And just like that, 12 years together meant nothing. He left me, left our 2 kids, left everything we built. For Sophie, a 25-year-old bartender with a perfect smile and a body that hadn't carried 2 children. I watched from the doorway numb as he loaded the last of his things into his car. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts, just a man chasing the illusion of a fresh start. Within weeks, Michael and Sophie were living in a new apartment, posting pictures of their perfect love for the world to see. Sunlit brunches, weekend getaways, candid kisses, all carefully curated to scream happiness. Meanwhile, I was left picking up the shattered pieces of our family, trying to explain to our 8-year-old why Daddy didn't come home anymore, holding our 10-year-old while she sobbed into my chest, asking what she had done wrong. I had no answers, At first, I was too exhausted to be angry. The weight of betrayal sat like a stone in my stomach, crushing me under the enormity of it all. Night after night, I lay awake in our too-empty bed, wondering when exactly he had stopped loving me. If he ever really had, But grief is a funny thing. It doesn't stay still. It shifts, morphs, burns away until all that remains is rage, Michael had promised Sophie a fairy tale, a fresh start. No baggage, just the 2 of them, and their future. And for a while, it seemed like he had truly won. He was the man I had once known again, attentive, devoted, practically glowing with new love, until reality came knocking. Sophie was pregnant. Suddenly, Michael was the perfect man again. Proud, protective, holding her hand in doctors' offices, showing off ultrasound pictures like he hadn't abandoned his own flesh and blood. The same man who couldn't be bothered to attend our son's soccer games was now painting nurseries and assembling cribs. I won't lie. It hurt. More than I thought possible. Watching him shower another woman with the love and devotion he had so easily withheld from me. Seeing the world celebrate his second chance, while I struggled to make ends meet, But the pain didn't last forever. Because 6 months later, everything changed. A friend of mine, a nurse at the same hospital where Sophie gave birth, called me one evening. There was hesitation in her voice, a weight to her words that sent a chill down my spine. "Anna," she said carefully, "you're not going to believe this." And just like that, the house of cards Michael had so carefully built came crashing down, the baby. Not his It was poetic, really. The man who had so carelessly discarded his family, who had rewritten history to cast himself as the victim, had been betrayed in the very way he had betrayed me. Michael had no idea. Not yet. But the moment he found out, his perfect world shattered. All those Instagram-filtered dreams. Gone in an instant. Sophie was gone before he could even process what had happened, leaving him alone in an empty apartment, drowning in regret. And as for me, I had already moved on, stronger, wiser. I no longer missed the man who had abandoned us, so when he came crawling back, begging to fix things, I just smiled and shut the door. And for the first time in a long, long time, I truly felt free, It wasn't long before I noticed the cracks in Michael's new life. Sophie, the bright, carefree woman he'd fallen for so quickly, wasn't the golden angel he made her out to be. I wasn't the type to dwell on the misfortune of others, but when I heard whispers of their troubles, a strange sense of vindication bubbled up inside me, She wasn't perfect after all. It all came to light slowly. The late-night fights, the strange smiles on social media, the sudden distance between them. For the first time in months, I let myself feel a flicker of something. Justice. Maybe the fairy tale he had built wasn't as magical as he'd thought. Maybe Sophie wasn't the cure to all the things that were wrong with him. Dot, it was clear now. Michael had been running away from the very things he needed to face. A fresh start. Maybe. But he couldn't outrun his flaws, his impulsive nature, his selfishness. And neither could Sophie. No one could. I found myself checking up on him more than I cared to admit. It wasn't about longing for him anymore. It was about watching, waiting for his inevitable fall. It was a little cruel, but I couldn't help it. He deserved it. He had wrecked everything we'd built, taken a sledgehammer to our family, and walked away without a second glance. Dot. And the thing is, I wasn't the only one watching. Dot. One afternoon, I got a call from Claire, my best friend since high school. Claire had always been the type to dive into gossip, but I never expected what she told me next. "Anna," she said, her voice tight, "you need to sit down for this." I braced myself. Another piece of news about Michael and Sophie's so-called happiness. Maybe something new about their troubles. But then she dropped the bombshell. "Sophie's pregnant," she whispered. "But there's a twist." I felt my blood run cold. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't need to. Sophie had already managed to ensnare Michael with a baited hook. The promise of a child. The illusion of a new beginning. I had no doubt that he was over the moon. No baggage, no past. Just the two of them against the world. Dot. And yet, something didn't sit right with me. This wasn't the first time I'd heard of Sophie being less than truthful. Claire had been discreet, but the whispers were enough to spark my suspicion that the next few weeks were a blur. Michael's photos with Sophie became more frequent, more elaborate. Family dinners with her family, cute baby announcements. He was happy, I thought. That's what mattered, right? But then everything changed. Dot. As the days passed, the weight of Michael's new life, his happiness, his glowing posts on social media all began to grate on me. But I didn't show it. Not to anyone. I had a mask on now, a mask of composure and indifference. But inside, it ate away at me. Every single picture of Sophie's perfect smile, every ultrasound image he shared with the world felt like a dagger. Dot. But the worst part wasn't the pictures. It wasn't the fact that he was happy without me, or the painful realization that he was playing the doting father-to-be, as if nothing had ever gone wrong. The worst part was the realization that I was letting it affect me. I had moved on, or so I thought. I had built a life for myself, for my children, without him. I had gone to therapy, focused on my work, and slowly started to rebuild. I was okay. Or at least, I pretended to be. I could fool everyone, even myself. But not completely. Not when I saw him living a life I thought was supposed to be ours. Dot. And then one evening, Claire called me again. This time, her voice was even more urgent, frantic almost. "Anna, you need to hear this." "It's bad," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. I could tell she was holding something back, trying to process the information herself. "What happened?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Sophie. She's not pregnant by Michael," Claire said, her voice trembling. I don't know how, but she was never pregnant. The baby isn't his. It's someone else's." My heart stopped. I stood there frozen, as if the world had gone silent. It took a moment for her words to register fully, but when they did, I felt like the ground beneath me had cracked open. "How do you know?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer, but I had to ask. I needed to understand how my ex-husband had been duped into this lie, into this fake future. "Anna, I can't say much. But I work at the hospital, remember?" Claire continued. "I don't know all the details, but it's true. She's been keeping it hidden. But the truth's coming out. The baby's not Michael's. I stood there in stunned silence, trying to make sense of what she was saying. Michael, the man who had told me he needed a new life, the man who had left us behind, had fallen for one more lie. And it was a lie that had cost him everything. The first few moments after that phone call were a blur. I was shaking, my breath coming in short gasps, as I tried to process what Claire had told me. Michael's new world, the one he'd fought so hard to build with Sophie, was built on sand. And now, that sand was slipping away, crumbling under the weight of the truth. The next few weeks passed slowly. My thoughts were consumed by the information Claire had shared with me. I had no idea how Michael would react when he found out. Would he be angry? Would he feel embarrassed? Or would he simply swallow the truth, like he had swallowed so many lies before? But I couldn't focus on him anymore. Not right away. I had my own life to live, my own family to care for. It wasn't my place to fix what he had broken. The only thing I could do was sit back and watch as the truth slowly seeped into his world. The truth that would shatter everything he thought he had. And it didn't take long for that truth to come crashing down. Days passed in a daze. Every time I saw Michael's face pop up in my social media feed, those fake, perfect photos of him cradling Sophie's belly or holding a newborn that wasn't even his, it gnawed at me. Not out of jealousy anymore, but out of something much more complex. It was a mixture of vindication and anger, of disbelief that he had been so blinded by his own impulses that he couldn't see how easily he'd been manipulated. But what could I do? I couldn't interfere. I'd long since learned that the only way to protect my heart was to keep my distance. Then, one evening, just as I was finishing up dinner with the kids, I received a message from Claire. The words, short and blunt, hit me like a freight train. He knows. I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing, unable to process. He knew. Michael knew that the baby wasn't his. The lie had unraveled. The world he had built with Sophie was shattered. I didn't even think twice. I grabbed my purse, told the kids I'd be back soon, and left the house. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I needed to see it. I needed to see Michael for myself, to see how his perfect little world had crumbled. When I arrived at his apartment, I felt a surge of bitterness rise up inside me. I hadn't been there since the day he walked out, leaving me alone in the house that once echoed with the laughter of our children. But now, standing at his doorstep, I was filled with a strange mix of relief and rage. He had betrayed me, but this was the universe's revenge, and it was impossible not to feel some satisfaction at his downfall. I knocked, feeling the sting of my own uncertainty. Would he open the door? Would he beg for forgiveness? I had no idea what to expect, but when the door finally creaked open, I saw Michael standing there, his face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. He looked like a man who had seen his entire world turn to ash. And in a way he had. "What are you doing here?" His voice was rough, full of tension, as if he'd been expecting someone else. I almost felt bad for him in that moment. Almost. "I came to see how your perfect little world was holding up," I said, my words coming out sharper than I intended. The satisfaction was still there, but now it was tinged with something darker, something I couldn't quite name. Michael's eyes flickered with guilt and frustration. "Anna, please. I didn't know," he muttered, stepping back, as if trying to escape the weight of his actions. "I didn't know any of this. I thought we had something real." "Real?" I scoffed, crossing my arms tightly over my chest. "You abandoned your family for this, for a lie, a woman who wasn't even honest with you, and now you're the one asking for sympathy?" He opened his mouth to say something, but the words died in his throat. There was no defense. How could he defend himself after everything that had happened? I couldn't even look at him. Not the man who had shattered our family. Not the man who had betrayed me so completely. I didn't ask for any of this, Michael said finally, his voice cracking. I thought I was starting over. I thought this was my chance for happiness. Happiness, I repeated, laughing bitterly. You think happiness is built on lies? On running away from the people who love you? The truth was, he had been running his whole life. Running from commitment, from responsibility, from the mess he had created with me. Now, he was left with the wreckage, alone and empty-handed. I never wanted this for us, Anna, he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know what happened. For a moment, I almost believed him. For a fleeting second, a part of me wanted to reach out, to offer him some kind of forgiveness. But then I remembered everything. I remembered the years of neglect, the lies, the way he had walked away from us without a second thought. No, I said firmly, shaking my head. You don't get to do that. You don't get to come back here and pretend like nothing happened. You don't get to break my heart and expect me to fix you. Michael looked down at the ground, his eyes filled with shame. I'm sorry, he whispered, but the words felt hollow. He was sorry for what had happened to him, not for what he had done to me. To us. I don't want your apology, I said coldly, turning to walk away. But then something unexpected happened. As I reached for the door handle, I heard Michael call my name, softly like a plea. Anna, please, don't go like this, he said, his voice breaking. I'm not asking for you back. I need to know I haven't lost everything. I stopped in my tracks, my back still to him. I didn't know what he meant. How could he think he hadn't lost everything? After everything. Michael, I said, my voice low but steady. You lost everything the day you walked out that door. And with that, I stepped out of his life for good. For the second time, weeks passed, and life slowly began to settle into its new rhythm. I focused on my kids, on myself, and most importantly, on rebuilding the pieces of my life that Michael had torn apart. There were days when I still felt that sharp sting of betrayal, but as time went on, the pain lessened, replaced by a quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. It was like I had finally freed myself from the emotional chains he had bound me with. I had stopped checking social media for updates on Michael. I knew his perfect little world had crumbled, and part of me wondered if he would ever really come to terms with what he'd done. But I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to care anymore. And yet, I couldn't help but notice that something in the air had shifted. I would catch whispers from friends, people who still worked with him, or mutual acquaintances, that Michael had changed. He wasn't the same impulsive man he used to be. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and I could see it. He was slipping deeper into a pit of regret. The gleam in his eyes was gone, replaced by a shadow of the man I once knew. One evening, as I was getting the kids ready for bed, I got an unexpected phone call. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Claire. Anna, you need to hear this, she said, her voice frantic, almost panicked. What happened? My heart began to race. I can't believe it. Michael, he tried to get back together with Sophie. She blurted out. He showed up at her apartment, begging her to take him back. He's a mess, Anna. He doesn't know what to do with himself. A strange mix of emotions washed over me. Part of me felt relief, a sense of justice, knowing that Michael was suffering just like I had. But another part of me, one that was harder to acknowledge, felt something akin to pity. Was this what he had wanted all along? The fairy tale that turned into a nightmare? Claire continued, her voice shaking. And get this, Sophie isn't even taking him back. She found someone new. A guy who's actually there for her. She told Michael she didn't need him anymore. The news hit me harder than I expected, not because I wanted him back. God, no. But because it was the final confirmation that Sophie, the girl who had replaced me so easily, had played her own part in this mess. She'd been just as much a pawn in Michael's selfish game as I had been. "Do you think he regrets it?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I don't know," Claire responded softly. "But he's not the same person. He's broken. I just wanted you to know." I hung up, my mind racing. There was no satisfaction in his pain, no joy in watching him suffer. But there was a quiet sense of closure, as if everything that had happened had finally come full circle. The lies, the betrayal, the revenge. It was all part of a twisted cycle, and now it was complete. Michael had lost everything he thought he wanted, and I was no longer the woman who had been devastated by his departure. I had become someone stronger, someone who could stand tall without needing him. A few days later, I was at the grocery store with the kids when I saw him. Michael. He was standing in the aisle, staring at a jar of pasta sauce like it was the most important thing in the world. His face was tired, haggard, and when he looked up and saw me, there was a flash of something. Regret, maybe, or perhaps the acknowledgement of just how much he had destroyed. I wasn't sure what to feel. It had been months since I'd last seen him, and here he was, in a completely different version of himself. The man who had walked out that door with such certainty was now a shell of the person he used to be. I didn't say anything at first. There didn't seem to be any point in exchanging pleasantries. We had nothing left to say to each other, Dot. But he was the first to speak. "Anna," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I know I don't deserve to ask anything of you, but can we talk?" I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a surge of anger rising up within me. I had been through so much in these past months, and yet here he was, coming to me like nothing had happened, like he hadn't destroyed everything we had built. But I didn't let the anger consume me. Instead, I looked him in the eye, and for the first time in months, I felt no bitterness, no hatred, just a strange, detached calm. "You don't get to talk to me, Michael," I said firmly. "You made your choice, and now you're paying the price for it." I turned to walk away, but he reached out to grab my arm. I froze, every muscle in my body stiffening. The nerve of him. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "I was selfish. I didn't think about the consequences. I wanted to feel something different, but I lost everything. And now, I'm lost." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back into his eyes. There was nothing there. No love, no redemption. Just an empty shell of the man I used to know. "Goodbye, Michael," I said softly, my voice devoid of emotion. "I hope you find what you're looking for." I walked away, leaving him standing there, his hand still outstretched as if he expected me to turn back. But I didn't, and that was the final moment. The moment when I truly let go. No more regret, no more anger, no more thoughts of what could have been. Only a quiet, firm decision to move forward without him. Dot, as I left the store, the weight of everything that had happened, everything I had been through, seemed to lift. The sun shone a little brighter, the air a little fresher, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. Weeks turned into months, and slowly but surely, the wounds that Michael had left in my heart began to heal. It wasn't instantaneous. No healing journey ever is. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by the weight of it all, by the memories of us, by the promises we had made, and by the finality of the life we used to share. But those days were becoming fewer and farther between. replaced by moments of clarity and purpose. My kids were doing better too. They had been through so much, so many late-night tears and unanswered questions, but now they were starting to thrive again. I could see it in their smiles, in the way they had started to adjust to the rhythm of life without their father. They still missed him, of course, but the absence was no longer something that crippled them. They were stronger than I gave them credit for. I threw myself into my work, into being the best mother I could be, into the simple joys of life that I had neglected for so long, while my heart had been entangled in the drama of Michael's betrayal. I started taking better care of myself, pushing myself to grow in ways that had been impossible when I was in the shadow of his neglect. I found a new sense of independence that was both liberating and empowering. I had become someone I didn't recognize in the best way possible. And then, out of nowhere, I heard from him again. It was a Sunday afternoon when I saw his name pop up on my phone. Michael. The notification stared at me for a moment before I finally tapped it open. The message was simple. Can we meet? A wave of disbelief washed over me. After everything, the lies, the betrayal, the selfishness, now he wanted to meet. Was it guilt that had brought him back? Regret? Or was it just that his perfect little world had come crumbling down, and now he needed a shoulder to lean on? I almost didn't respond. I almost ignored him, kept going with my life, as if nothing had ever changed. But something within me stirred. A curiosity, maybe, or a need to finally close this chapter completely. What do you want to talk about? I replied, my fingers trembling slightly as I hit send. I didn't expect a reply immediately, but when it came, it was short. I just need to explain myself, please. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. The idea of seeing him again, of hearing his voice after all this time, brought back so many emotions. Some I wasn't ready to face. I thought about all the times I had wished for closure, for him to finally acknowledge what he had done to us. But now, in this moment, I wasn't sure if I needed that anymore. After a moment of hesitation, I responded, Okay, tomorrow, noon. It was strange, this decision. I wasn't sure why I agreed, but somehow I knew that it wasn't just for him. It was for me, so I could fully put the past behind me and leave him where he belonged. In the past. The next day, I arrived at the cafe first. It wasn't a place I had ever gone with Michael, but I knew it was quiet and neutral, perfect for a conversation that had no place in my life anymore. I sat by the window, sipping on a cup of tea, watching the rain fall outside. For a moment I let myself breathe, to find a sense of calm before he arrived. I wasn't going to let him shake the foundations I had built. And then I saw him. He walked in slowly, his head down, as though he didn't want to draw attention. His face was even more worn than the last time I saw him. The man who had left me, who had left us, was no longer the confident, self-assured person he had once been. This was someone different, someone who had been stripped of the illusions he'd so desperately clung to. He spotted me and made his way over to the table. I didn't rise to greet him. I stayed seated, my hands wrapped around the warm mug, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. He sat down across from me, but neither of us spoke for a few moments. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. I could feel the words bubbling up inside me, but I forced myself to hold back. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about him. I'm sorry, he said finally, his voice low, rough. For everything. I wasn't sure what I expected, but this wasn't it. I had spent so many sleepless nights imagining this conversation, preparing myself for his apology, his remorse, and yet here I was, feeling nothing. You've said that already, I replied, my voice calm, collected, and it doesn't change anything. His eyes flickered with a mix of guilt and something else. Maybe desperation. I know, he whispered. "But I need you to understand. I was lost. I thought I was doing what was best for me. I thought I could have it all. But I was wrong, Anna. I was so wrong." There was a long pause as I looked at him. My emotions were all tangled up inside me. Confusion, frustration, even a little sympathy. But I had learned, through all of this, that I didn't need to bear the weight of his mistakes. I had already carried that burden for too long. "You've hurt me, Michael," I said, my voice steady, unshaken. "You've hurt our kids, and nothing you say or do is going to undo that." He nodded, his face crumpling with remorse. "I know. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to ask. Please, can we at least be civil? For the kids. The kids." My heart clenched at the mention of them. They were the only real casualty in all of this, and I would never stop fighting for them. But Michael's idea of being civil was far removed from what he actually needed to do to rebuild any trust with me. "Let's just leave it as it is," I said softly, my gaze steady. "We'll do what we have to for them. But you and I, we're done." And with that, the conversation ended. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic reconciliations, just two people finally coming to terms with what was broken. He left without another word. His shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, but there was no satisfaction in it. No sense of victory or revenge, just a quiet acceptance that the past was gone. And I had to keep moving forward, As I left the cafe that day, a strange peace settled over me. It was as if the final chapter of my life with Michael had been written, and now I was free to write my own story, one where he no longer played a role. There would be no more anger, no more bitterness, only the path ahead, where I would continue to build a future for myself and my kids, stronger than ever before, And for the first time, in a long while, I truly believed it, By the time the final confrontation arrives, Anna has completely transformed. She is no longer the woman who once clung to the hope of saving a broken marriage. Her focus is now on her children and her own empowerment. She has learned that her strength lies in moving forward, not in revenge. But when the chance arises, she doesn't hesitate to use it. Her motivation has shifted from desperation to justice. She has found her true sense of self and is determined to protect her family. No matter what, Michael Kama, on the other hand, is a shadow of the man he once was. The bright future he built with Sophie has crumbled. He has lost everything: his reputation, his pride, and his relationship with his children. Sophie, having abandoned him when the truth came to light, is nowhere to be found. He's alone, drowning in regret. The children, once devastated by their father's departure, now have a sense of stability. Anna has become their pillar, their rock. They support her in every step she takes, and even in the hardest moments, they show her the strength she had long forgotten she possessed. The final blow comes when Anna's friend, the one who had tipped her off about Sophie's pregnancy not being Michael's, gives her the final piece of the puzzle. Anna gets her hands on undeniable proof. Sophie's infidelity, which had destroyed Michael's new life, is now exposed. In a quiet, calculated move, Anna ensures that the evidence lands in the hands of the public, all while maintaining her calm composure. At first, Michael tries to downplay the scandal, but the truth can't be ignored. His perfect world shatters publicly. He loses his job, his credibility, and the last shred of his dignity. His relationship with Sophie crumbles when she vanishes, realizing that she, too, has been a victim of Michael's selfishness. In the end, Michael finds himself isolated, the man who once had it all, now left with nothing. Anna doesn't feel the burning satisfaction of revenge. What she feels is a sense of justice. She has exposed the lies, and in doing so, has freed herself from the chains that bound her to a broken past. Michael's error, the belief that he could have it all and abandon his responsibilities, has led to his downfall, Dot. After everything settles, Anna is in a better place. Her focus is now entirely on her children. They're thriving, and she's finding happiness in the little moments, those moments she had missed while she was consumed by the wreckage of her marriage. She's even considering taking on a new career path, something that excites her and makes her feel like she's in control of her destiny. Dot. The town whispers about the downfall of Michael, but Anna doesn't care. She's no longer the woman who would feel sorry for him. She knows what she deserves, and what she's worked for. Michael, meanwhile, is left to pick up the pieces of a life that no longer exists. He attempts to reach out to Anna, but she is steadfast. His calls go unanswered. His apologies feel hollow. The truth is, he is now a stranger in his own life, Dot. As for Sophie, her fate is uncertain. She vanished when the scandal broke, and Anna's story of redemption ends with her moving forward, not looking back. Dot, the final encounter happens when Michael, now desperate, shows up at Anna's doorstep, asking if there's any chance of reconciliation. His face is tired, his eyes hollow with regret. He pleads for forgiveness, trying to convince her that he's learned from his mistakes. But Anna looks him in the eye, unfazed. Dot. With a calm, steady voice, she says, "You should have thought about that before you threw everything away. I'm not your second chance, Michael. You had your shot." As she closes the door on him, she feels no remorse. She's done. The past is no longer a weight on her shoulders. She's free to live the life she's built for herself. Goodbye, Michael. Don't bother coming back. And with that, she walks away, leaving the man who once betrayed her standing in the cold, a man who had nothing left